Hi everyone, thanks for joining yet another Octane virtual meetup where we'll be discussing various topics and other cool tips and tricks related to IBM planning analytics. For those of you who are attending this session for the first time, I would like to let you know that we do these virtual meetup sessions every month. Today we'll be covering another interesting topic related to creating engaging and interactive visualizations in planning analytics for Excel. Before I start, I would like to give a little bit of an introduction about myself, as I usually do. My name is Amin Mohammed, and I work for Octane Software Solutions as a senior planning analytics consultant in one of our branch offices in Hyderabad in India. I started at Octane in 2017, and before that, I had worked as an in-house developer in Macquarie, as well as a senior advisory consultant in IBM, having a total experience of almost 10 years in TM1 spanning across various domains. As a part of my professional career, I had also worked and led end-to-end implementation projects for IBM Planning Analytics and migration of PA from on-premises to cloud as well. You'll find my email address as well as my LinkedIn address on this slide, so feel free to add me on LinkedIn or connect with me via my Octane email address if you have any questions related to today's topic, or if you have any suggestions or topics you would like me to cover in the next meetup session. As for the agenda, I'll be covering the following. So I'll start off with about Octane, who we are and what we do. And then we will jump onto the main topic for today's session, where we'll be covering the Bing Maps, people graph. So these are the two Excel add-ins or the apps. And then we will be moving on to creating some quick and intuitive mini charts in Excel. We will also see how we can add images dynamically in Excel using the drop-down selections. And if you had attended my previous session on dynamic array formulas, as an extension to that, I want to use that and see how we can also create charts in packs that are dynamic to the changing data using dynamic array formulas. And then finally, we will wrap up with any question and answer session at the end. So about Octane, so we are an IBM Gold partner. We have 6 offices, out of which 2 offices are in Australia and 4 in India. Octane head office is actually based in Sydney, Australia. We have more than 40 certified IBM planning analytics consultants in our 6 offices. And together we have delivered more than 100 projects successfully. Our 4 key areas of expertise are providing the consulting, development, support, and training. Our offices in India has 24/7 support center, so where we actually manage our global clients all day, all year. We also provide virtual IBM planning analytics training sessions. So that's about Octane. Now let's get started with our demo. So for this demo, I'll be using Data Server on PAX. And I would like to start off this demo with a walkthrough of Bing Maps. So what are the Bing Maps? Bing Maps is a standard Microsoft Excel add-in. This allows us to create or use our location data and plot that location on a Bing map to instantly create location-based map visualization in PAX, automatically. So the Bing Maps add-ins can be accessed within Insert. You have add-in section. So this is where you will see the Bing Maps. And if you don't already see it, then you can, add that. It's a free app. You can go to Office add-ins and then click at Get add-ins and download it from there. So just a few caveats before you are able to use the Bing Maps. So what you need to make sure is the structure of the data that you are going to use for the Bing Maps. The structure should be such that the rows must contain the locations. So that's the mandatory thing that you need to make sure you have that. And it needs to have a header row as well, because it takes the header row as the main header, and then the rows beneath that is what will be used as the data. So we also require, most importantly, the internet connection, as it pulls the live location data. So if you don't have the internet connection, then the Bing Maps won't work. Let's see how this works in action now. So for this, I'm just gonna go and open a report in Patch. Just gonna sign into as data. All right, so let me just open this report. So here we have a very standard report. So what you see here is a Patch report showing the car sales, all right, for actual and budget by different locations. So here we have all the locations and the actual and the budget data against that. So here we have a drop down where we can see the data by countries, which is what is currently selected. We can change it to cities and the different postcodes for NSW and Western Australia that we currently have in this particular report. So now I'm going to open Bing Maps and select the data and see how the visualization appears. So for that, I'm just gonna go to Insert, click at Bing Maps. So it's gonna open the Bing Maps, and it's gonna show a display screen where it shows a bit of an overview of what the map would look like. So the first thing that I have to do is select the area that I want to include in my Bing Map. As I said, it needs to have a header row. So that's one thing, and the other thing is that it needs to have the locations as well. So once that's selected, so there is an option called Show Locations. I can just click at that, and as soon as I do that, it automatically shows me the pie chart across all the locations that are in my particular report. So I can always just click at a particular pie chart and see what is the data behind that. So for example, for China, this is the actual and this is the budget. So that's how you can actually see and make sense out of your data. So all your locations are plotted on this map. Now let's see what are some of the settings that we can play with. So there are basically 4 different settings that we can set for our map. So the first one is the map type. All right. So by default, the road type is used when the map is first created. We can have the option to switch to a bird eye view, all right, to show the landscape. So this just gives a different look of our map and shows the landscape view for that. Then we have the multiple data point display. Here we may select the circles or the pie chart to show our data. The pie chart is actually by default when we have multiple columns. So that's just the default that it selects. And if you only have one data column, then the pie chart is deactivated. So you can only have the circles that you can show. Then you have show legend over here. So this is just to toggle the legend series on and off. So here you can already see that the legend is switched on. If I just uncheck it, the legend will disappear and so forth and so on. Then finally, we have customized pin color. So when we have multiple data rows or columns that we are using, the color of each value can be changed from here. So right now it just uses the default one, but we can always change to a customized color that we want to. Then we have an option to filter the locations. So through this filtering option, so that we have here. So right now it selects all the locations that we have here, but we can always uncheck that and then select a particular location of our choice. And then once we select or click at apply, the map will automatically show the region that relates to the location that we have selected. So you can see the map now is only focusing on the selected area, and not showing the entire map. And likewise, what you also can see is if you want to know what is the data that is being used in our map, so you can click at select data, and that will actually highlight the range that we have selected, which is being used in the map. So you can always update this section to change the data range if required. So that's what we have from the filtering perspective. You can always even zoom in and go to the finer details if you want to have a look of your map. So this will be particularly useful, for example, if you have more detailed location specific data plotted on your maps, so where you can go to not just the country or the city level, but right down to the street level. I've also got the postcode level, which I'll just go about and show it. But you can, like I said, go down right to the most detailed level that you would want to see your data, if you have that kind of details available in your data set. So that's how you can always, zoom in and zoom out of your maps. So now let me just quickly update my report to show the cities, and we'll see how that will automatically reflect in my BIM maps. So now I've selected a city view, which now is showing me all the cities that are available in this report. And as soon as I do that, you can see that it is now showing me a view which is more specific to the cities that I have selected. So these are all mostly the United States cities. So that's why it's all showing, that particular area of the map. Similarly, I can, change a view to show the locations basis on the postcodes of NSW, which is a state in Australia. So as soon as I do that, here are all the different postcodes, and now the map is showing me basis on the postcodes that we have in our data set. So I can, like I said, I can go down to a much more finer detail if required, and we can also change the different locations, and it will update automatically. The other thing that we can do here is within these options, there is an option to show as saved image. Now this is useful if you want to copy and paste this into a PowerPoint presentation as an image. So doing this will convert this into an image format, which you can copy and paste it. And the other thing that happens as a part of this selection is that any changes that happens after this will not be reflected in the map. So it becomes more of a static image. And if you want to make this again dynamic, make the data reflected in the map, then you just uncheck this option, and then it will automatically pick up the current data and then show it on your image. The other thing that would happen is if you have this option enabled, then you don't have to worry about internet connection anymore. It just can be used anywhere without any link to the internet connection. So that's what I wanted to show you regarding the BIM map. So like I said, so it's a very good and intuitive way to show your map visualization that looks more realistic when you actually show it to the users, and it comes up with some very good settings that we can play around with. So that's for the BIM maps. So now we will look at creating another visualization, and that will be the people graph. Okay, so people graph is again an infographic that lets us create a picturesque visualization of our base data. So it also is another application that comes up with Microsoft, and you can always click at this one and then enable it, or if you don't have it, then you can get it from the Office add-ins. For this one, I'll be using this small report that again shows the sales by various car models that I have here. So I'll just open up the people graph, and as soon as I do that, it actually shows me a preview of what my data might look like once I select it. So here you can see that the data is on the left with all the column labels on the right, and it is represented in a particular shape, and this shape will increase its size and decrease it based on the relativity of the data that you have here. So now let's just add our data and see how it will look like. So to do that, I'll click at this add-in, and in here we have an option called data. I'll select that. As soon as I do that, it comes up with this particular window, and here I can provide a title for that. So I can just say I can give it a title saying sales by model over here, and now I can select the data. So here, once I do that, then it actually provides me the instructions on how my data should be structured. So it actually says me to select 2 columns in your Excel spreadsheet. So that means that you cannot have more than 2 columns for this particular add-in to work. So let me just quickly select that, and as soon as I selected it, the create button gets activated, and I can click at create. And once I've done that, then it shows me a default view of my data represented in this particular format. Obviously, there are options that we can change here to change the look and feel of our infographic. So this is the default one that has been selected. I can always select a different one to have my infographic display slightly differently. So there are a few options that are available here. There are different themes that we can choose from to show our infographic that we are comfortable with. And finally, the shape. So normally if I'm showing any sales data or any values that are dollar specific, then I use this dollar shape as opposed to a human, for example, because that makes it more closely relatable. So this is how you can probably just use this particular infographic, which is again that comes out of the box and gives us a good visualistic view of our data that we can use it in our dashboards. So it also has the same options as save as image and so forth that we had seen in our Bing map. So that's more on the add-in side, where you can simply use these functionalities that comes out of the box with Microsoft Excel, and then plug it into your dashboards and use it. And they are pretty cool as well. So now, moving on, let's now look at easy to create mini charts. Okay, and those mini charts will use it to show the trends in our data. So for that, I'll start off by creating a cell-based Sparkline. Sparkline chart that will show how my actual car sales are trending over the year. So here is the report that I'll be using, where it shows me the sales, got the actuals and the budget. So I want to show a trend of these particular models, how they are trending over the course of the year. So for this, the Sparklines are pretty, good visualization that we can choose from. It is easy to add this over here as well, and it is easy and in a very good way to show the trend in our data, such as the seasonal increases or the decreases, and as well as economic cycles, etc., using the Sparklines. So in Excel, we have 3 types of Sparklines. So we have got the line, the column, and the win-loss. All right. So a few things to note here are that the Sparklines are dynamic in the sense that if data changes, it automatically reflects in that Sparkline. The size of the Sparkline is dependent on the size of the cell. So because it fits into the cell, so if you resize the size of the cell, then it also resizes automatically. Now let's look at a quick demo over here. So to add a Sparkline, it is very straightforward. So all you need to do is, well, let me just start off with the column chart. So I'll just click at the column chart, and here it asks for the first option is to select the data range. So I can just select my data range, which is for these particular 4 rows, and then as for the location range, this is where you want to plot this Sparkline. So here I'm going to have it across these particular 4 rows. And once I do that and click OK, I have my data now, shown as a column chart, which now shows the seasonal, trend of how my sales are going throughout the year. So normally when I create a Sparkline, I would go into the options within the axis and set the minimum value options to 0, so that the starting point of it is 0, and that shows more closer picture of how my sales are actually trending. All right, so there are a few options again within the Sparklines that we can use to update it. So the first one is obviously, there are different themes that are available in here that we can pre-select from and show our Sparkline. The other thing is what we can do is we can show what is the month or what is the bar chart in here that reflects the highest sales, and what is the one that is showing the lowest sales, and highlight that with a different color to make it stand out in that particular Sparkline. So to do that, I can go to marker color, and here we have an option to say what is the highest point that I want to have a color for. So for the highest point, because it is showing the sales, I can have it colored as green, so I can know that for March easily by looking at the chart that it is making the highest sales for this particular car series. And similarly for the lowest one, I can again have a different color and have it as red. Now I can see for what months is this particular car series that is making the highest sales, and for what months it is making the lowest, just by looking at that trend, because it is easy to get lost and not be able to make easy sense out of this data when you have so many numbers to look at. And this will give us a good way of visualizing the same data but in a more visualistic format. So as you can see, this is how you can actually create, and yet it is so easy and provides a good visual info of how the organization is performing in a single glance. So obviously you can from this option here, you can select different Sparklines that you want to. So it doesn't necessarily have to be just the column, and it will reflect automatically over there. So not much needed to be done for this one, but yet it actually shows a good representation of our data to do some good reporting of it. Now, there are other mini chart that I wanted to go through, but before that, let me now take you through another topic where we'll go through the steps on how to create the charts that are dynamic. And when I say dynamic, it is dynamic such that it is flexible enough so we can control what info that we would want to add or exclude in our chart dynamically with no manual intervention. So all we want to make it is more interactive and dynamic with no manual changes that needs to be done for that. I'll use for that an existing report to create this interactive chart. So the one that I want to use is the same one over here. I'll go back to the countries, and now let's get started. So what I'm going to do here now is I'm just going to create a quick clustered column chart of my actual data over here. Okay. Now to do that, there is another thing that I want to highlight here is that Excel has incorporated AI. In here that actually provides us with some various recommended charts that it thinks is the best fit for the data that we have. So it aids us with a good head start before deciding which visualization that we want to use. So I'll be probably using that capability to quickly create that chart. So for that, I'll just select the area that I want to use for my chart, and within insert, there is an option called recommended charts. So if I click there, it actually, basis on my selection, already provides me with a few of the recommendations that it thinks I can use, to create my chart. So basis on this, basis on the data that you have or this or the structure of your selection, it will show more or less number of the recommended charts. So right now I'm just gonna use the first one, a clustered column chart, and as soon as I do that, here you can see it has added this clustered column chart for this particular data selection. Now this is a very simple chart. Now the trick the trick here is if you do decide later on to say, for example, exclude or include selected number of locations from your chart, then it becomes a bit challenging, because now you have to, every time you want to have a different choice of locations in your chart, you have to right click on the chart, select data, and now you need to, so for example, I want to have the first four locations and not necessarily all of them. So I have to select all these 4 locations and then click OK, and that's how you have to keep doing this exercise. And this is obviously, you know, cumbersome process, and also needless to say error prone as well, because there are chances that you might select invalid locations if your locations are not symmetric, and if you want to pick up these 4 locations and the grids, then chances are it might not be correctly selected. So how do we resolve this particular challenge that we have at hand? So now this is where I would want to use the dynamic array formulas that comes with Excel to make this chart much more dynamic, such that it gives us a control to update the charts basis on whatever flag that we want to provide for these selections, and the chart updates automatically. So let's see what I would want to do here before we actually go about changing or creating the chart again using the dynamic arrays. So here I'm gonna create a column called include. Now this is where I'm just gonna put Y against the columns that I would want to have it included in my chart. So all it requires me to do is put a Y against the location that I would want to include, and basis on this particular flag, it will automatically update my chart for that. Now, how do we go about doing that? Now, for that, we'll be creating a small data preparation table, which will have a more filtered view of my data, which is based on the criteria that we have here. And this is what we will use in our chart because it is more dynamic, and we'll see how that actually works. So to do that, so these are the column that I would want to have, which is again location and the actuals. And as a matter of fact, I would also add 2 additional columns called highest sales and the lowest sales, just to show out of these particular locations that we have pre-selected here, which one is making the highest number of sales and which is making the lowest sales. So this way we can also plot this information into the graph and show a good view of our graph showing the not only the sales, but also highlighting a few of the key information that a user might want to look at. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use a filter function, which is a dynamic array function. And this is useful to filter our set of data bases on a set criteria. So it asks for the first argument as an array as to what is it that I want to return. So here I'll just say I want to return for now the locations, and within this range now it prompts me for the criteria. So here my criteria, I would select this to be equal to Y. All right, so as soon as I do that and hit enter, now my view has restricted to only those locations that has got the flag as Y. So I can similarly do the same for the data as well, where I'll just use a filter function. Here in this case, my array would be the data that I want to get for this one, and the criteria would be the same, which is that I need to have this to be Y for it to show up in this particular selection. So as you can see here, so we now have the location and the actual, and it is now dynamic. So if I remove this, the location is already taken off from that particular view. And if I have to add, for example, a different location, you just put a Y flag over here and it automatically updates here. And this is what we will now be using in our maps. But before that, let me also just add the highest sales and the lowest sales. So for that, I'm just going to use a simple if function and put a logical test saying if this is equal to the max function, which gives me the maximum value within a range. So here I'm just going to say max of this, and I'm going to put a hash sign to spill it across all my data range. If this is equal to that, then give me this particular value, and I'm going to again put a hash sign so that it spills across to that entire range. I'll also put it over here so that it's the same. So if my value is equal to the max of this whole range, then show me that value. Otherwise, I want to show an NA in that particular cell. The reason why I'm choosing NA is because NAs are shown as blanks in the chart. So that's why it's I'm using the NA. And as you can see, the 25,000 is what is showing up because that's the highest value within this range, and that's what we'll be using in our maps, in our chart. Sorry. Similar to this one, we'll do the same for the minimum. I'll copy the formula, paste it here, and then simply change this to minimum. So this is again an Excel formula, and bang, so you have this. Now, what I want to do is I want to use this information in our maps to create our map. So to do that, again, I'm gonna select this whole thing, and I'm gonna go to the insert recommended charts, and I'm gonna select. See, now the recommended charts has increased because my data set has changed, and so basis on that, it feels that there are more visualizations that I can select from this list and create one. So here I'm gonna stick to the same clustered column chart to show the data. Sorry. All right. So now that we have this column chart, and there are actually, there are 3 series here. So one is showing the actual, there is the highest and the lowest. But one thing that you would have noticed is that the highest and the lowest is being duplicated for the same data, because we have the same data across for these two. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to show one bar chart for this one as opposed to 2, because that's just a duplication. To do that, I'm just going to double click on that and increase the overlap to 100% so that it overlaps with the other series that's out there. So that way we don't see 2 series, but rather just 1 series. And now we have this particular chart showing the actual, the highest, and the lowest for all these 4 locations. The other thing that I can do here is I can just quickly do a formatting to show a different color for the highest sales and a different color, say for example, for the lowest sale, and then this I'll probably color it in a more different color. Now that we have this chart over here, let's now see if it is actually dynamic enough to reflect basis on the conditions that we have here. So let me just start off. I'm just going to remove one of them. Now it seems to be working okay, where it is now showing all the available locations that I have in my view. But the problem here would be when I add more than 4 locations. All right, so now you can see that Egypt has been included, or for example, if I just add Netherlands, for example, so although Netherlands has been included in this particular array of our data, this is not somehow reflecting in our in our chart. And the reason for that is because, as you see here, my chart is only hard coded to select the locations that I had initially used to create my chart. So this is not very helpful. So let's now see how we can make this dynamic such that my chart uses the data which is reflective of this actual table and not necessarily the predefined selection that I have used when I created this chart. So to do that, I will have to create a name range for each of these columns, and that name range is what I'll be using in this particular chart. So to do that, let me just start off by going into formulas. I'll define a name for this one. So here I'll say location, give this as our location, and I'm gonna spill this across to the entire array. So for that, I'm gonna use a hash sign for the dynamic array that uses the spill reference to include all the rows within that particular table. So that's what I'm going to use. Similarly, I'm going to do the same thing for the other as well. And here is where I'm going to again put hash sign. Actual. So here it is. Okay. So likewise, I'm going to do that for the highest and the lowest quickly. All right. Yeah, as R highest. And then finally, I'm just going to do this for the R lowest as well. So hash, so it takes everything into account. Now all I'm going to do is right click on this chart, get select data, and here is where I'm just going to update the reference. So where we have say series value, so now this is where the cells are being referenced over here. So instead of the cell references, I'm going to pass the actual name reference over here. One thing to keep in mind is that you still need to keep the sheet name intact when you do that, and with a bank sign or exclamatory sign, otherwise it won't work. So with that in place, I'm now going to take out the cell reference and then replace it with the actual name reference that we have in here. So similarly, I'm just going to do the same thing for this as well. Highest, and then finally with this two as well, lowest, and then for this one too, location and bank. So now as soon as I did that, you can see that the Netherlands has been included within my chart, and I can always just increase the number of increase the criteria, and it will automatically my chart will include those particular locations automatically with that. Now that's one way of how we can have a dynamic list of data set that automatically gets reflected into my chart. So now that we know how we can filter the data, now you can go ahead and add multiple criteria for your same data to change. So here I can now, instead of showing the locations basis on this criteria, I can list the locations, the top 5 locations, which is making the highest sales. So all I need to do is just change my criteria in this one. So my return range would be the same. My criteria would be where this value is greater than or equal to the large function is what I'm going to use, which gives me the largest value basis on what range that I want to pass in here. So here it's going to be large 5. So that's my criteria, and I hit enter. Now it's showing me all my top 5 locations over here. So I can now copy this same formula and now paste it over here. The only thing that I will change is my array, what I want to return. Here in this case, I'm going to return this one, and now you can see that this is reflecting accordingly basis on whatever the data that we have here. So I can just change this to top 6 locations, and here I have the top 6 locations, and so forth and so on. So that's how you can create dynamic chart using the dynamic array formulas in this one. So the next topic that I would now like to cover is adding images in our reports that changes dynamically based on the selection in the drop-down list. I'll open a new Excel workbook to demonstrate this. So for that, I'm just going to go here, open, and this is the one that I'm going to open. What you see in this workbook is I have 2 images in cell B1 and B2, as you can see, and in cell A7, highlighted in gray color, I have the Excel data validation list consisting the names Octane and IBM. So these are the 2 values that I have in my data validation over here. Now, before I show off how it all ties up, and let me first do a quick demo of how it actually works. So if I select IBM from cell A7 over here, I would expect the image next to the drop-down to change automatically to IBM image above. So let's see if that happens. So if I select IBM here, so as you can see here, the image automatically changes to IBM, and similarly, if I change it to Octane, it changes to Octane as well. All right. So this, I think, is a very cool and useful capability, which we can actually use to update the employee images. For example, as we select an employee, or even changing the different logos basis on different entities that a user is employed to in an organization, or for that matter, showing the different country flags, for location-specific selections, to name a few. So these are some of the use cases which we can use this for. Now let's see how it is actually done. So first off, for this to work, we need to insert an image, and that image must be inserted and positioned well within a particular cell. So you can see that IBM is sitting inside the cell B1, and there is no overlap to the other cells as well. So the next thing would be then to create few name ranges. So there are formula name ranges. So there are two Excel formulas that we can choose that does this trick. The first one is a combination of classic index and match function, and the other one is an indirect function. So these are the two functions that can be used interchangeably to get this desired results. So now let's go through each of these methods and see how it all works. I'll start off with the simpler option, and that one is the indirect function. Okay, the indirect function actually converts the text string into a valid cell reference. All right, so here we need a cell reference. So for that, I'm going to create two cell references here for cell B1 and B2. I'll name this as IBM as that, and this one I'll put it as Octane. So this should be reflective of whatever the values that you have in this particular drop down. Okay, now that this is done, now the second option is to create another name range which will have the indirect function. So here I'm just gonna create a new name range, and I'll call this as indirect. And here is where I'm gonna put the indirect, enter the indirect function. So all it requires is the cell reference. So I'll just put it this, and then click enter, and then close it. So now that you have created the name range, the last step is to assign this particular image with the name range. All right, we can have any image over here as a starting point, and once we assign the name range, the picture will automatically change to the one selected. So here I will just select that name range, that picture, and then use that name range that we had earlier created. So here we have indirect, and then I hit enter. So now once I've done that, if I change it to IBM, now you can see that it is automatically changing, and this time I have used the indirect name range to make this change. Then the next one was I think index function that uses the match function. So for this, we will require still images to be well within a cell. However, we do not need a name range for those cells in this case. All right. So what we do, however, need is the actual names itself in the cell. So here I have in cell A1 with the name IBM, and in cell A2 the name Octane. Now for the formula, we just need to pass the match function within index function to get the results we want. So let's just quickly do that. So here I'm just going to create a new name range. Here I'll call it as our index example, and in my formula section, I'll just enter the index formula here. So for index, the first argument that it wants is the array that you want to return. Here I want to return B1 and B2. And then as for the row, I'll use the match function to give me the desired row number. So here for the match, the first argument is the lookup value that you want to look for, and in the range that you want to look it for. So I'm using A1 and A2 here, and that will give me the row numbers. When I say click enter and close it, now I just change this to, for example, our index, and now you will see that it works just like the index. So that's just how you can update images dynamically in your patch reports, and then show that over there. So the last one that I want to now show is a power trick that that actually shows a particular chart. That for it's rather a mini chart showing the trend of how your actual is trending comparing to the budgets. So for that, I'm gonna go back to this initial report, and here we have got actual and budget. So this report has got the actual and the budget. Now what I want to show is I want to show an area chart for the actual and a line chart for budget to show on the same chart to show the trend of how my budgets are tracking or my actuals are tracking over the budgets. So for that, the first thing that I'll do is I'll just clear this off. So to do that, first I'll have to select the actuals, and I'll create the first area chart. So for that, I'm just gonna select this, and within insert, I'll going to add an area chart over here. And now that I have an area chart, I would now like to add a line series. So what I'll do is I'll copy the budget and then select the chart and then paste it as special, and I'll add that as a new series. So as you can see here, I have both actual and budget data in this chart, but I want to show the budget as a line chart as opposed to the area chart. So what I'll do is I'll quickly change the type of that chart to be a line chart. So here I can just select a line chart over here. So as soon as you do that, so now the budget is showing me as a line rather than an area chart. So a few things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove few of the chart elements from this view, and the other thing would be I'll just remove the outline here, so it just doesn't show me an outline. Now the next thing that I want to do here is slightly change the formatting of it. So what I'll be probably doing is changing the color of this one to be slightly different and reducing the width of this line so that it appears neatly on my chart. The other thing is for this chart, again, I would like to change the color to slightly lighter color so that it comes up pretty neat. The other thing that I can do over here is I can just increase the area of my chart to fill into that entire chart area, so that when we put it into a cell, it actually comes up pretty nicely. So now the next thing is for me to place this particular chart into the cell. So to do that, I can just simply hold the Alt key and then drag it so that it actually snaps to the grid. Similarly, I can keep holding the Alt key, and now I can resize it so that it actually fits into that particular cell. So now that I have this chart, now I'm just gonna duplicate that chart 3 more times. Okay, so that's 1, and then that's 2. So I'm just gonna again do this hold. You can always select all of them and then do a hold key, and then align left and so forth to do all of them together. So now that I have this chart over here, all I need to now do is last thing, change the data. So here I'm just gonna change the data from cell B7 to 8, and then M7 to M8. Okay, and then similarly for this, I'm gonna just change that to 8 and then 8. Don't worry about the formatting. We can easily update the formatting at the end through a simple trick. So we can just leave it that for now. Just change the references, and then once we have it there, then we can update the formatting. All right, so that's done. And then lastly for this one again, I'll select the data. Here I'm just gonna change it to 10. And cool. So now that we have this, now the last thing is to update the formatting. So for that, I'll just select the first chart, copy it, and then I'll select the second chart. All right, the second chart, and then I'll go to home, paste special, and I'll just copy the format, paste the format. So once I've done it for one, I can just select the other chart and quickly type, hit the function, the F4 key, for it to perform the same step for the other as well. So as you can see here, we have easily created another intuitive mini chart that actually shows the trend of how my actual is tracking over the budget in a very nice and clean manner. So I think given that we are almost time, I think I'll stop here and we'll open up the floor for any questions that we have. So Amin, any questions that we have here?
I mean,
hey. Yeah.
All right. Now we don't have any questions at the moment?
Right. So I think if we don't, I think we can call it off now. Or you want me to wait for a few minutes? I can do that. But otherwise, you always have my email address. Yeah.
There is a question. Can we use the Bing Maps in Workspace as well? I know we focused on only the Excel specs today.
Yeah. So for Workspace, we already have the map capability. So short answer is no, you cannot, because that's more specific to Excel and packs. For for Power, I think we already have a good map visualization that we can use it for. But no, Bing Maps we cannot enforce.
All right. I think that's all the questions we had today.
All right, perfect. So thanks a lot to everyone for making up to this particular session. I hope it was enjoyable and informative. Just a quick reminder that we have these virtual meetup sessions every month. So I hope to see you all hopefully next month. Till then, have a nice day, and until then, bye.
Thank you, Amin. There are a few other questions coming in. What we'll do is we'll answer them in the chat separately.
Surely. Yeah.
There's a quick one about how does this relate to perspective? Like, are these available in perspective as well?
Yeah. So it is very much available in perspectives as well. So nothing changes. It's just a different front end that you're using, as opposed to packs you can use. So the underlying data is still going to be perspective, right? So the data is perspective. All these features that I'm showing here is Excel based, so it can be used on top of your packs or on top of your perspective reports, both.
All right, awesome. We will have the recording on our YouTube in the next day or so.
Sure.
Thanks, Amin. Thanks a lot for that.
Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone. Right. Bye.